Hello, I'm OK Savage, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. This is the third time I've recorded this intro because my Wi-Fi kept breaking and now I've had to download the video that we're going to be looking at together. But anyway, this is part 3 of a series, so if you've not watched part 1 and 2, go watch them now. When you come back, you will know that I am making some artwork for a piece of music that I'm releasing. Now, the music has been ready for ages, the artwork is not ready yet. Spoiler alert, I don't finish it by the end of this video, although it's getting pretty close, so I'm thinking probably one more big session on it and then hopefully should be done. So what I've done, it's the usual, I've recorded myself doing a little bit of work on it, I've made that into a little video, we're going to watch it together now. So I'm starting off, I'm going in and putting some blue onto that sort of cape area. I don't know if it is a cape, robe, whatever's going on, their attire, just to give the colour a little bit more depth, because it doesn't really pop at the moment. That blue's just helping bring it out a little bit, make it look a little bit deeper, a little bit more complicated. Really getting into it all over, avoiding that bit in the middle, which originally was going to be a fire, but then I think I started thinking of it more as an opening in this kind of cloak cape arrangement at some point during the process. I do like the idea of it being a fire, but also with the positioning and everything, I don't know, I feel like it makes a cool opening. It might glow. I've not done that yet, but I might do that next time I work on it. I might make it glowy. I like glowy things. Going in with some blue here as well, just touching up the area around the neck because it got a bit scruffy. Scruffy neck. You ever had a scruffy neck? Oh yeah, and this was when I was still thinking that that area would be a fire, and I think this is what inspired me to make it not a fire, was I started going in with some sort of thicker paint and getting some textures on there, and just, it really made me think about the positioning and the placement and what I could do with that space. And I think the space having some depth to it is actually a lot nicer than when it's got this paint over the top of it. Then again, it does look very fiery there, so I'll let you know next time. Now I'm going into this face area. At first I'm just kind of smoothing it out, tidying it up a little bit, because last time I went very messy with it, because I was just getting down basic kind of ideas. So I'm going through now, sort of lightening it up a bit, so I've got kind of a space to add details onto, somewhere to work, and so there's a little bit more contrast between this face area and the background. Sorting out the shape of it as well. I think I was sort of messing around with a couple of different shapes, trying to find what worked. Adding some kind of bony protrusions down the neck area. There was a hint of that already, but I really liked the hint of that was there, so I just wanted to make it pop a bit. So I've put some paint on quite thick with the idea of just letting it dry, and then because the paint is thick, it'll be a little bit textured, it'll be quite nice and easy to go around and outline and just add the shadows in and everything later. I'm going around the eyes. I think the eyes have been one of the most difficult parts so far, because when I started, I had this idea that the eyes would just be kind of holes, and then I had the idea that the eyes would be glowing, and then as this bird person thing got more bird person-y, which it wasn't supposed to be originally, the eyes have become a lot more like eyes rather than holes or glowies. Such amazing technical terminology going on in this video. I hope you're enjoying all the education that I'm giving you here. But yeah, going around outlining them just to make them stand out against the face. Basically, I'm doing their eyeliner because why not? And adding a little bit of sort of shadow and shaping so the eyes are sort of leading down into the beak, as though the beak is sort of half beak, half nose. Really kind of leaning into this whole, like, is it a bird? Is it a person? Is it a skelly bob? Who knows? I really wanted to have that sort of weird alien quality to it, because originally the idea for it was that it was an alien. It just turned out very birdy, and we're running with that. But it's still, you know, it's meant to look weird. Going in, brightening up the eyes a little bit because they've got a bit messy and smudgy. So I'm just going in with some white and brightening them up, and really trying to get that shape down. Putting some highlights on the beak just to make it stand out a bit, and on the face to add a little bit of shape to it. Again, I wasn't quite, like, this whole piece has been very explorative and experimental in nature. I've kept changing ideas for what I want and sort of experimenting on the canvas to find out what I want with it, which is, you know, it takes time, hence why this is part 3 and it's not finished yet. But it's fun, and I do think it's a really fun way to work when you kind of throw ideas at the canvas and see what sticks and paint over what doesn't. I've gone in with a bit of blue there just to add a little bit of colour to it. So it was looking very sort of grey and monotone, but blending it in so that it's not too much. I don't know whether the colours are going to stay the same by the end. Really blending in the highlights and the shadows that I've added there, because I went in quite thick with them to start with. Again, doing some blending up at the top here as well. It really is a bit like doing makeup on like a weird flat bird face. Like, if someone was like, hey, do my bird person's makeup for me, and you were like, yeah, let me get my brushes. I'm going in and adding a bit more detail on the neck. I'm not really sure why I've gone for this particular kind of structure to the neck, but I do like it with the kind of, it's almost like banded. I don't know, it makes me think almost like sort of bands of muscle going round it, which works as well with obviously the bones that are on display. I was trying to think of a specific word then, and it's not protruding. I'll put a caption if I remember the word when I'm doing the edit. I'm going in and adding a bit more detail on these feathers as well, because again, they were very rough to start with because I was just getting an idea down, and you can see now I've decided I like the idea of the feather collar, so now I'm going in and adding more detail. And I guess this really sums up what I mean by exploring ideas on the canvas. I don't necessarily mean I'll go in and, you know, do every idea to its full conclusion each time, but what I found with this process is it's been fun to do rough ideas, and then if I like it, I keep it and go in and do more detail, and that's very much the kind of process that I've been rolling with this one. Now the paint on the neck has dried a little bit. This video is a little bit sped up, so yeah, it's actually been a lot longer in real time. My hand doesn't move that quickly. That's why that thick paint has already dried. But yeah, so I'm going in and adding some kind of shadowing, just defining those shapes a little bit more now that I know where they are. Really making that kind of bony bit pop out as well. Not sure. Exposed, that's the word that I was looking for. Exposed bones. That's confused me now. Anyway, yeah, just getting some kind of shadows and highlights on that neck area. What I did do by accident here is I went in too fast on the muscly bit of the neck and actually took out a little bit of the colour and the shaping that I'd put in there by accident by going in there too fast, so I'm going to have to re-add that later now. That's something that I would always be careful with when you're painting, is it can be tempting to do a bit and then get really excited and be like, I want to add this to it and that and the other, and it's like, no mate, let your paint dry first, otherwise that thing that you really like that's got you so inspired to add to it it's going to get lost when you're moving your brush around on it. So I'm going back to the face again, adding a little bit more blue, just trying to get the shading and highlights to kind of reveal what the shapes are. I say reveal because, again, wasn't entirely sure how I wanted this to look. Didn't have much of a solid picture in my head, so it's very much oh, there's Jake. You can just see him just behind the easel. He's a very cute dog. I do actually have a video where I did a caricature of Jake. I'll see if I can figure out how to pop a link on the thing and you can go check that out. I don't know why there's this motion for going and checking that out. You're gonna run to check it out apparently. So yeah, I've got the face shapes a little bit more kind of shapely. So now I'm going in and really adding some highlights into that to make it look a bit more, I don't know, real, a bit more finished, solid words. Basically, I've added enough highlights and shadows that I've found shapes I like, so now I'm going and refining that to make them look better. No, just to make them look a bit less flat, essentially. Now I'm going in on the hair, starting off putting some thin, dark lines, and then what I've done is I've got some dark purple on one side of the brush quite thick, and some white on the other side of the brush quite thick, and as you can see I'm sort of applying it in a kind of lop way so that the dark purple's going on at the same time that the white's going on, just on the two halves of the brush, so that you get these lovely lines where you've got a dark bit and a light bit and they're perfectly lined up with each other to make you know, these sort of locks and strands of hair that look like they've got a kind of shadow and a highlight going on at the same time, without having to try and meticulously do two different lines that happen to line up with each other, because I don't know about you, I won't want to do that. So what I'm doing, I'm following a lot of the lines that I put on to start with. So, you know, when I was doing the hair last time, I put on these sort of thick, swirling, kind of cursive lines. So I'm really trying to use them as my guide for this hair. And again, with how thick I'm putting the paint on, that's going to help me out a little bit when I come to refining this even further, because that's going to dry in a very textured way, and that's going to mean that I have less work to do when it comes to adding shadows and highlights, because the texture of the paint is going to do some of that for me, because obviously as the light hits it, if it's got a texture to it, it's going to create its own natural highlights and shadows that I don't have to paint extra into there, because it's happening in real time, as it were, if that makes sense. I don't know. Go look at some really gouache paintings. It's cool. Gouache? No, that's a medium. Go look at some really impasto paintings. They're fun. So yeah, I'm really trying to get all those swirls and everything. Like I said, I've used the thick lines from last time as a guide, but I've also gone kind of in between them as well and tried to really add a lot in there. I don't want any space on that hair section that looks blank, as it were. Going back in, adding a little more detail on the eyes. Again, it's a process of doing what you can, waiting for it to dry, going and doing a little bit more. So, you know, I couldn't do the eyes and the face all at once, because it gets to a certain point and it's like, well, I've got so much paint on here that right now I can't add anything more to it, because at the same time I'm adding, my brush is going to be scraping off. So, you know, you have to go and do a different part of the painting where you let that section dry and then come back to it, which is what I've done with the face here. Adding some sort of yellow and orange tones into the beak, just for a little bit of contrast. I blended them in quite a lot, re-added some orange tones onto the neck, and then I'm going in on this bit here, and I think I realised at this point that I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do with it, which is why I'm sort of putting some thick white paint onto it, just to give me some shapes to play with next time I come back to it. And then finally, I'm just adding a few little kind of highlights to the capey, cloaky area, just to give it more of a fabric-y kind of feel, because it was, whilst it had a nice depth to it, it didn't have much shape. And obviously actual cloth has all folds and nice things. And then just, I think this is the last thing I do, I'm just adding some little highlights to that feathered collar and some extra shadows, just to really make that pop. Again, that's something that I had stopped working on before I was satisfied with it, because the paint was just too wet. And yeah, that's all I got done in that session. It wasn't a particularly long session, it was probably about 40 minutes or so, I reckon. Obviously that's been condensed into this little video, apart from anything I cut out every time I'm like dipping my paintbrush in the water, and you know, that is a lot, and every time I'm licking my paintbrush like an absolute goblin, because no one needs to see that. That's where I've got up to so far. I really like where this painting is at the moment. It's definitely not finished, but it's coming together really nicely. I'm really enjoying it, and I feel like the next session I do, if I can get a good sort of hour and a half, 2 hour blocks of work on it, I think that will be it. And then obviously letting it dry, sorting the edges, varnishing, but you know, in terms of the actual image itself, I think that, yeah, another good hour and a half or 2 hour block and we should be good to go, which is very exciting. So hopefully I will see you next time. Big thank you to anyone who supports me on Patreon. You make my life a lot easier and make sure that I've got the time to do stuff like this. So thank you so much. Yeah, have a nice day.